our Sixers talk. So we're going to pick up from where we left off. We left off talking about Joel Embiid and his slow start to yesterday's game, but his impactful performance the rest of the way through. And again, the box score for him 33 points, 12 rebounds, another double double. Again, great, well, not great, but really good shooting 11 to 21 from the floor, 11 to 15 from the free throw line in 27 minutes. And he played in, I believe it was listed or reported as 4 5-minute segments yesterday. That will probably increase on Tuesday, tomorrow, when they play the Cavs. And that should be a winnable game. It should also help them give them room between themselves and the Celtics and the Pacers. I don't know who the Pacers' next opponent is, but I know the Clippers today, well, will be playing the Boston Celtics. So the Celtics will play the Clippers today. And I don't know how that game's going to play out. Like I said, they beat the Lakers, and we all know what the Lakers are. We will definitely get to that in the second hour of today's show. But continuing on with the Sixers, it was good to see JoJo back yesterday. It was very much needed to have him back yesterday. And one of the things that has been a lot of the talk lately amongst the Sixers and Sixers land is the new additions and how these guys are coming together and fitting together. When it first got here, it was arguably this five is the best starting five. And these are typical Philly fan base. Now, in recent weeks, or the 2 weeks that JoJo has been out, people have gone from one extreme to the other. Where before it was okay, we see what we can do. We can do this, we can do that. Now we need to work on trying to get these guys signed in the offseason. When JoJo went out, they lost those 2 games. And one of those games they really shouldn't have lost. The Bulls game. I was also, as a fan, taking away what I do here, part of the media, I was disappointed at that game because of the way that game played out. Uh, you had an opportunity. You had your guy get you free throws to give you the lead, and then you have what we like to say a brain fart on the defensive end after that and lose the game. So as a fan and as a member of the media, I was disappointed, a little distraught, disturbed by that game. It's one that I think that we gave away. I won't even go as far as saying we let it away. We gave it away. Like I said, with what we like to say as the brain fart that occurred very, very late in that game. Then you move on to Friday night's game. And Friday night's game, I think, was in a lot of ways over before it even really got started. Teams knew what to do. The Houston Rockets attacked the basket quickly and often early in that game, which actually laid the blueprint for the game plan that was played out by Indiana early yesterday's game. But Houston was just on their game. I'm again, you're a fan, so we're always a little in some type of way when your team loses, because as fans you always think your team can win just about every game, which we know is not really the case. But nonetheless, that game I accepted a little bit better than the Chicago loss. Then we move into Sunday. Like I said, Houston pretty much laid the blueprint for the next upcoming games, if you will, for the next upcoming opponents, if you will. And that was immediately the Pacers, who did the same things. They attacked the basket, and this was with JoJo even in there. But that was their game plan. They attacked the basket. They know that the Sixers would switch on just about everything. So they had a well laid out game plan. But the difference was the fact that Embiid was back. And like I mentioned earlier today, they really don't have anybody that can handle him one-on-one on the low block in the post. And it's scary, I said, because of what he can do as a basketball player, as an athlete at that size of 7'2", 250, 260. He has the moves with his back to the basket, which I said I think he's bringing the center position back to the NBA. He also can face up, go at you off the dribble. He can jab step and shoot a mid range. He can even go mid range off the glass. He can stretch out as far as to the 3-point line, but he can also dribble from that 3-point line, Euro step or dribble all the way to the basket and finish. If he doesn't finish, he gets the foul. He can shoot free throws. He's second to only James Harden in free throw attempts per game. So that says a lot for a big to have that many free throws attempts per game, and he makes a good considerable amount of them. Now, again, I talked briefly about my guy Amir Johnson, things that he did, and he doesn't really always fill up a stat sheet, doesn't really fill up a box score. But again, like we like to say here, the game within the game, the little things that he does, that he gives you out on the court, are things that you can't coach. This is why I think he went to play in that G League game, because he knew with these two bigs being out, Joel Embiid and Boban, that at some point he was going to get, his number was going to get called, and he wanted to be ready. Excuse me. He wanted to be ready, and he has been ready. And like I said, there are going to be people that are probably going to debate me or combat what I say about him. But again, you got to look at, again, like we say, the game within the game. He rebounds. He does what he can on the defensive end. He can block a few shots, and he just goes out there and plays, which is the consummate professional. Whenever his number is called, he goes out there and does what he does. He stays in his own lane, plays his role. So shout out to him. With that, I want to move on to my second guy, and this is one guy that a lot of people have been speculating about the summer that he will probably not resign. Now, here's the thing. And I'm speaking of one Jimmy Butler, another one of my guys who I am pushing to get a conversation with, along with Amir Johnson and a couple other Sixers and a couple other people on my list. And again, people, I haven't posted my list, and I think I'm changing my mind now. I'm not going to post my list, and I'm going to keep it to myself and my coworkers, my partners here at this show. And something's going to happen one way or another. I'm going to get an interview with one or two, if not all of these guys. So I'm going to keep working at it. And like I said, it's going to happen in one way or another. Somehow, some way, it's going to happen. In my LeVar Ball mode, I'm going to speak it into fruition. But getting back to Mr. Butler. Yesterday, let's go with 12 points, right? 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Okay. And how many minutes did Mr. Butler play? Butler played 31 minutes yesterday. He was 3 of 8 from the floor and 6 for 6 from the foul line, which was very, very good. So he is still getting some shots. And with the lineup that they have now, you have 5 starters that average double figures. And you know, these guys will definitely get shots. But what has to happen is somebody has to step up and become the bigger person and say, I'm going to be all right with the shots that I get. I'm going to be okay with the number of shots I get, because I know it's for the betterment of the team. It's going to help the team win. It's going to be successful for the team. And what you have to understand is he's still averaging 17, somewhere between 17 points a game. So you've got all of your starters averaging at least 17 points, if not more, which is very, very formidable. And I think that starting 5 can play with anybody in the league. But one of the things people have to understand about Jimmy, and it's all the talk about he doesn't look engaged. He looks like he's just coasting through. And one of the things you have to understand is there's been a shakeup. When he first got here, there wasn't the Tobias Harris, who can also score, or the Mike Scott, who gives you the toughness. The other wing guys that came in that can help out, okay? So it's another adjustment for him. So it's the second adjustment with this team alone. So you kind of have to take a step back and again, look at the game within the game and see what he does. And I mentioned to a coworker about a game last week where he was saying that he looked disengaged and whatnot. He looks kind of slow, very quiet. But in that particular game, he ended up with a quiet 19 points. He ended up with about 15, 16 shots that particular game too. So it's going to happen. It's going to change with the type of scoring that they have in that scoring lineup. But I think Brett Brown is doing better because now he's constantly telling Jimmy, look, reminding him that he's an all-star. You don't have to defer to everybody all the time. We understand you want to make the right plays, but there are moments when you can just put your head down and go. And I think come playoff time, I think that will happen. One of the things I also noticed before I take my next break about Brett Brown is yesterday I noticed a lineup where he had Mike Scott, Ben Simmons, I think it was Jimmy Butler, JoJo, and James Ennis out on the floor. Or it might have been Tobias Harris and James. But you had bigs. Everybody was at least 6'7", 6'8", and above. You could switch on everything at that point. And you took JJ out of the game. And don't get me wrong, people. JJ does some amazing things for us. I love what JJ does for us. But there are certain times in the game when he becomes a defensive liability. And you have to make that change. And you have the pieces now to sub him out and play that. And then you can go offense for defense. You know, it's old school, but you can do that still. Brett Brown is, I think, starting to get something together. I think he had a real set idea of who and how many players he was going to play yesterday. I think it worked out because the second half, they locked in on defense. They got better. They took the lead. They sustained it and held on. I still think the turnovers are killers. And a lot of the turnovers that the Sixers get, and they kill me and I cringe when I see them, are the unforced turnovers, the bad passes, the forced passes. So again, the unforced turnovers need to stop. We will get back into this some more. We will talk some Lakers. It's 12:03, 3 minutes past the noontime hour. I hope you are enjoying your lunch. I hope you are enjoying the show. It's your boy D. I will be back on the other side. We will talk more Sixers. We talk some Lakers. And we're going to get into this Nick Wright stuff after the break. It's your boy D. I'll see you on the other side.